level sideline. Texas Tech football, also color analyst for Texas Tech men's basketball, and all of a sudden, thud, there's the story after a tough loss over the weekend that Mark Adams no longer, at least suspended by Kirby Hocutt as the men's basketball coach. Chris, thanks for your time. I'm sure it's kind of tracked some things down, but and I know this is kind of blunt, but is Texas Tech looking for a reason to move on from Mark Adams?
I don't know if that is the case. I think, I mean, obviously we all know that, you know, if you're losing, the vocal folks, there's a lot more of those than when you're winning. I think this is just an incident that occurred last week, and I think they're investigating it, or I think the word was inquiry, and I think that is ongoing, is what I'm gathering, because we still don't. I mean, as I'm sitting here talking to you guys, I'm not really sure who's in charge of the program right now. I mean, obviously Mark is suspended, and I mean, they've got a game Wednesday night, and I'm assuming they're practicing this afternoon, and I'm not real sure who's running that practice. And so I think that it's you know, it's an inquiry that is, I guess, ongoing, and I'm not real sure who's in charge right now. So that it's just all very awkward and tricky right now, for sure.
So do you know precisely what happened?
No, I mean, I'm going off of the release, you know, and everything, and it heard some things about what had went on. I believe this was something that happened middle of last week, and then obviously, I think Mark just chose his words poorly, is what I'm gathering, and I think that it's 2023, and that is very tricky, as we all know, and it's, if anyone, you know, any sort of racially insensitive comment, it should be taken very, very seriously. And I think that's what they're trying to determine here. And then, you know, and obviously there's been more that's come out. I mean, Jeff Goodman has a separate incident and all that. I'm sure that's I'm guessing what the inquiry is, not just about the one incident. But I think that you're fact finding right now. But the tricky part is there's a game Wednesday night, and the whole thing is it's bad timing. It sucks. There's no winners in anything like this, and where we go from here is anyone's guess. I think that all options are on the table here. I think many people feel like Marcus coached his last game here, and I think they have every right to feel that way. And I think there's other people that feel like he could be reinstated at any minute. So I think those players will largely determine what goes on here, because whatever they have indicated and what Kirby and his team, I guess, found out, or, you know, because look, I'm around this thing more than most people, you know, and you know, you broadcast these games, you're around these teams and these programs, but I'm not there every day. I have no idea what has gone on or what went on. But I mean, that's what Kirby's task is trying to figure out, you know, what the daily dynamic is, and how things that are said and how people are treated and what their feelings are and all those things. And you just have to make the best decision about who you want in charge of your program.
So, Chris, it seemed like, you know, he was the perfect seamless transition from Beard when that change was occurring. And, you know, then obviously this year it's not been exactly what, you know, was hoped for. Obviously, there were some struggles along the way. And then it always just seemed like, just from the outside looking in, there's always some scuttlebutt, always just some kind of whispering in the background, just always something feeling a little bit off. And then this story drops, and it's like, oh, okay, well, that seems like they could be part of it. But that's from the outside looking in. It seems like it's been a little off kilter this year. Has it felt that way, being up close and personal? Does it feel like this is, you know, the exact same way the program was a year ago? Does it seem like something has been a little off kilter?
Well, I think what you're touching on is that things feel off when you're losing. When you start out 0-8 in the league, people are unhappy. And last year they were a scary team. Nobody wanted to play them. I mean, they were really, really good. And, you know, you're just a few points away from moving on to the Elite Eight, and lost to a Duke team that, as we know, was loaded with NBA folks and all those things. And then this year, you go to Maui, you lose 2 of 3. You start the conference season out 0-8, because there wasn't a lot being said when you're winning 4 of 6 and you won 4 in a row. You know, there's not a whole lot of scuttlebutt out there, but this is just comes with losing. I think that's just kind of the deal. And I know there's been plenty that's been said and written out there. I think a lot of it is speculation, but I think this just kind of comes with the territory, unfortunately. And, you know, if Mark, you know, if he if he said something he shouldn't have, then he's going to be held accountable. But I don't pretend to know what happened or exactly the context. I think we have to all be careful there. I'm just going off of the release that was sent out.
So, it's a program that was on the verge of a national championship with like seconds from that. And now here we are, they Beard to Texas, which at the time, and even if it was, it made sense. And now we know what's happened to him. And now Mark Adams, who could walk on water last year, it appears he could be gone. I've saw the name. This is from people who cover basketball. Grant McCaslin. You've giggling. He former Tech assistant coach. He was fantastic with Scott Drew at Baylor, and he's done a great job at North Texas. Would that even be someone you think would be on the radar?
Yeah, I wouldn't rule that out. I think a lot of people have connected those dots. I know Grant, I've known him for a long time and know him a little bit anyway, I should say. And, if there's a change made, I think that's somebody that, would have an interest in this job. I think this is a good job. I think it's probably much better now than it was 5 or 6 years ago based on what you just said. There's, when they get a bad crowd here, there's 12 or 13,000 people in the stands. And they've got a $50 million building across the street that's a basketball-only building. So you've got support, you've got facilities, but you need stability. And I think that's, trying to determine what's going on here and how to proceed is what Kirby is tasked with. But, and I'll be honest here, if there's a move made, you're trying to find a basketball version of Joey McGuire. That's what you want, because Joey was an outside-the-box hire. Tech was criticized in some circles for hiring somebody like Joey, but he's been proven to be the perfect fit. I think that people around here are all in with him, and I think you need the basketball version of that. And I think to a certain extent that's what Chris was when he was here. I just think it obviously had a shelf life, and I think he moved on to another job, and now we sit. I think it's just wild to think that, a year ago you had the most chaotic game I've ever attended with Beard and Adams on separate sidelines in front of a 15,000 plus, and now neither one of them, could potentially be in charge of a basketball program. It's just wild to kind of process that, but that's the reality of it. But I just don't know how this is going to go and all that. And look, Mark's been great to me. I think a lot of him. He's been around these parts for a long, long time. I never would have suspected that he had a racist bone in his body, but it's 2023, and there's just certain things you can't say. But I don't pretend to know the context and all that. And I know you're asking about Grant McCaslin, but there'd probably be a lot of people that would have some interest here if there's a job opening.
Chris, how much does Kirby Hocutt need to make outside the box hires, given the fact that he's had several coaches that have been fired for just these, women's basketball, softball, Billy Gillespie, all fired for kind of similar things where their relationships with the team got toxic?
Yeah, and it's funny how people have revisionist history. Kirby Hocutt had zero to do with Billy Gillespie. That hire was made before he got even on, took the job here. But yeah, I hear your point, and I think when you're anywhere for as long as he's been, there's going to be, things that come up that you're not okay with. I think that it's very fair to attach anything that when Kirby's tenure is a athletic director that he should have to answer for that. But I also think that, he's very well paid, and that comes with the territory. And I think they've tried to do due diligence here, which is, I think, why you haven't heard any sort of resolution yet, because I think they're trying to make sure that they have all the facts. But yeah, I think they take, student athlete treatment very seriously here. And there's been some examples where things haven't gone right. And I think they've made changes and look, nobody tries to put anybody in place that you feel like is going to mistreat a student athlete. And I think they've tried to adjust that. But when you get enough on your resume that things like that, that's a fair question for you to ask. And so I think they have to be very careful about how they proceed, not just here, but if they were to make another hire. That's why I say, you love a guy like Joey who had zero attached to, him as far as anything negative towards student athletes.
Chris, thank you very much, man. We appreciate it. Your thoughts about the Big 12 will have their first football season with the new schools, along with Texas and Oklahoma, since the last time we spoke. Yormark and the Big 12 have worked out their agreement, the exit agreement with Texas and Oklahoma. Your thoughts is everything now? We know the ending, we know the beginning, and yet we still don't know about the future because of might be expansion somewhere down the road.
Oh, I think you can almost guarantee that you're going to get some sort of expansion. I don't know what that looks like. I think we've all spent a lot of time speculating on it, but I think Brett Yormark has basically said everything. He's told you everything that he wants to do. He's done most of it with the exception of expansion. I think that's coming. It's just a matter of what that looks like. I think, I've even been told that, Gonzaga has been widely reported, but I think he's got a heavy interest in UNLV just because of the city of Las Vegas and the way he thinks and coming outside the box. And I mean, we've all focused on all these Pac-12 schools, but I think the Big 12 is sitting in a really good spot right now. I think that, you're not the SEC or the Big 10. Nobody else is either. But I guarantee you that the ACC may look at you and go, I kind of like their situation better than ours. And we already know that the Pac-12 would suggest that. So I think that there's more news coming. It's just a matter of who and when and what we get there.
All right, so we know who the Pac-12 has in their conference. Whatever happens, happens. But let's be selfish, Chris, because you especially travel. I think San Diego State and UNLV need to be the first teams they add just so we can go to those cities. Would you agree?
I'm not going to disagree with you on either. I do know enough to know that they have looked at San Diego State, and I just don't think they feel like that moves the needle at all. I've been to San Diego many times. It just doesn't provide what they're looking for, and I think the consultants and the folks in charge have told them that. I do have concerns about Gonzaga. I think Gonzaga is very much tied to Mark Few. I think that there's a brand there. But if Mark Few's not there, what exactly is Gonzaga? Can you prove to me that they could sustain that basketball presence and that brand if he's not there? And I think there's a lot of people that have concerns about that aren't really sold on that. But Brett Yormark is continuing to look out into the future, and I know that he feels basketball is undervalued. We've seen his comments, and that's where some of this stuff enters. But I just think he views the city of Las Vegas as a huge revenue-generating opportunity. What that exactly looks like, I'm not real sure.
Thank you, Chris. Chris Level, RedRaidersports.com, but also he, of course, is the men's basketball color analyst sidelines for Texas Tech football. Around the corner, theathletic.com college